But I want to talk about also this other big issue tonight on the program, which is immigration. And you've written a really interesting, I think, piece in the Wall Street Journal that puts this in the context of something else we talk about a lot here, which is the elites. And you say that, while everything looks bad with this migration process and problem in not just the U.S., but the U.K., and we've had problems in Australia as well, you say we are witnessing a powerful indictment of a political and cultural elite whose hegemony is long overdue to meet its nemesis. Basically, that the people who have saddled us with this immigration crisis are due for a reckoning. Tell us how that's playing out in the United States and globally as well.
Well, James, I know this has been a big issue in Australia. As you say, it's been a very big issue in the UK, and it's huge here in the United States. Look, for the last 3 years, we've had a Democratic administration, which, when it came in, literally on day one, the first things that Joe Biden did, he issued a series of executive orders which lifted the restrictions that Donald Trump had put in place over to prevent migrants coming across the southern border and being able essentially to come into the U.S. essentially without any kind of apprehension of any serious nature. He lifted those restrictions. In the 3 years since, James, we've had, well, anyway, the estimates vary, but everybody agrees the official data are at least 5 or 6 million at least crossing the border in 3 years, coming into the country. Many of them are processed, and then because they're claiming asylum under the law, and especially under the way that Joe Biden's been enforcing the law, they're allowed into the country. So we've had this explosion of illegal immigration into the United States. You've seen it, and it's become a big issue in the last year because initially, obviously, it was a big problem for the border states like Texas and Arizona, to some extent California. They've now got many of these immigrants right into the heartland of America.
Sure.
They go and I'm in New York City. We have thousands and thousands of migrants being housed in temporary accommodation. This is a crisis. It's an economic crisis on one level because it's causing tremendous strain on cities who have to house many of these migrants, have to feed them and house them and give them basic welfare resources. It's obviously a huge national security problem because millions of people are coming across the United States border. By the way, they're not just all Mexicans and Central Americans. They're the ones that we know about. Hundreds of thousands coming from Africa, tens of thousands from the Middle East and other places. And they are an enormous threat. We saw what happened in Israel on October the 7th. People are starting to raise the possibility that so many of these people coming across the border will have, bad intent and may well be, supported by terrorist organizations or terrorist supporting states. But my point in that column, James, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say is that, with all of that there, there's this whole issue where we've seen, not just the national security, but crime, real bizarre crimes and things we've never seen before, like cops being beaten up on the street. It seems like this sort of deliberate choice to open up the nation, because that's what it is, a deliberate choice, is really demoralizing Americans and, frankly, people in other countries that are in the same thing. How much of this is a deliberate choice to demoralize people and basically say, hey, we're in charge? And is this the reckoning that's finally going to come?
Yeah, it's a deliberate choice, James. It is a choice. Again, and Biden made it very clear when he came into office. He basically put a sign up at the border, metaphorically speaking, saying to everybody, come on in. The United States is open. We're no longer that wicked, horrible Donald Trump who kept you out. Come on in. We're a welcoming country. And surprise, surprise, they came in. They did that. Now, again, you don't have to believe, some people do, I don't. You don't have to believe this is some great plot to kind of replace the existing population of the United States or Western Europe, because it's going on in Europe too. In particular, we've seen these terrible cases in Britain in the last week. You don't have to believe it's some great plot. What I do believe, and I just take them at their own word, this progressive left that is making these decisions, whether it is in the United States, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Britain, this sort of progressive, and by the way, when I say left, I define that very broadly. I mean, you have a conservative government in Britain, which seems to be doing exactly the same thing, basically allowing these people in. The ideology is, borders are a terrible thing. We have a great obligation to the poor of the world, to the huddled masses of the world, the people who are persecuted. We've got to let them all in. Borders are immoral. National sovereignty is immoral. We're all part of one great big world. Yeah, nice idea if you like it. I don't particularly, but it has practical consequences, and we're seeing those practical consequences on the streets of major cities right now, and it's a disaster. And I do think a reckoning is coming. And again, whether it's the election this year and what happens after that, whether it's look at what's happening in Europe, James. These, the media keep calling them these far right parties, anti-immigrant parties, because they've had enough. They've had enough of their borders being open to all comers.
Gerard Baker, we're going to have to leave it there. I could chat about this stuff all night. Thank you so much for your time.